It's 12:08 in the West on the John Phillips Show, Talk Radio 790 KABC, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios, where heavy players play every weekend. And you'd be surprised sometimes how people who play heavy play. They usually say, follow the book. Some do, some don't. And it doesn't matter how much money you have in terms of your knowledge. Mr. Randy Wags at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, on Friday night at the Coliseum, it was the South LA High School Football Classic, and Holly Mitchell was there to do the coin flip and to stand on the sidelines for an interview where she was asked what a supervisor does, where Holly Mitchell gives quite the strange shout-out to explain her job.
You know, when I first ran for this position, I served in the state legislature for 10 years. But when I was running for the LA County Board of Supervisors, people were like, supervisor, what do you supervise? Until the pandemic. And everyone knew Dr. Barbara Ferrer and the County Department of Public Health. And so I think people have a new appreciation and understanding of local government.
Wait, so she is essentially saying that Barbara Ferrer is, if we're talking about the Board of Supervisors being the Jackson Five, she's saying that Barbara Ferrer is Michael?
That's right. We all know that Barbara Ferrer is Tito, but she says Barbara Ferrer is Michael.
Well, who's she? Jermaine?
Chili Willie.
But when asked what her job is, the thing she points to is, see, Barbara Ferrer, I'm in charge of that. And points to that as a success.
What is wrong with her?
Well, after that tape at the yacht club, she's absolutely insane. That's what's wrong with Holly Mitchell.
Quite frankly.
She does like to kick trash cans, though.
From.
Now, I did mention she did the coin flip, and what a flip it was.
So you did the coin toss?
Yeah.
And how fun was that?
It was amazing. It's a gorgeous coin that says South LA Classic.
They don't use like a quarter?
I don't know if I've ever heard in my life of someone being asked, how did the coin flip go?
But they make a special coin for the flip for that particular game?
Why, yes, they did.
Okay. Well, ring the cash register over at the U.S. Mint.
The only thing that event didn't have was tacos or balloons.
We're doing whatever we can to get people to come. Tacos, balloons.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. As many of you know, I am a massive fan of the Showtime era Lakers. And after that, when it was Kobe and Shaq, and even those in-between years with Nick Van Exel and Cedric Ceballos and Vlade Divac, I watched the team all through that time period. And one of the things that would happen, particularly during the Shaq era, the other teams would complain about, they would complain that Shaquille O'Neal would manhandle whoever the opposing team center was, but they wouldn't call the fouls on Shaq because the referees know if Shaq is in foul trouble, if Shaq fouls out of the game is less interesting and no one's going to watch. And if you want to make sure that the NBA has high ratings, you have to have one set of rules for Shaq and one set of rules for everyone else. That was the theory. Now, of course, the Lakers and Shaquille O'Neal, I'm sure, would object to this characterization, but many of the other teams that they played and their fan bases, I would assume, agree with that assessment.
The star players get a little special treatment.
That's right. Here in the state of California, where it's anything goes for certain sorts of crimes. If the state of California can make money off of you, they're on you like white on rice. Because after all, why don't they want to ring the cash register? And one of the big money makers for the state of California, besides things like parking tickets, which primarily go to local governments, are DUIs. A DUI is something that can ruin your life, and it can cost you a fortune. Not just for your attorney to fight the charges or try to reduce the charges, but in terms of fines and what happens to your insurance after you have a DUI on your record, those sorts of things. If you aren't given preferential treatment and you get treated like anyone else, a DUI can be catastrophic. especially right now with inflation the way it is and the cost of living. No one needs an extra $15,000 bill that just falls from the sky or whatever a DUI costs you these days.
Oh, if you want to get one of those fancy lawyers, it's going to be all those fines plus another $15,000. And that's for the first one. For the second one, I know this because of a certain somebody, you're looking at $30,000 just to the lawyer to get you off for that one.
Okay. So $30,000 for the lawyer, and then whatever the state charges you and whatever the insurance company charges you. So you're talking about essentially the cost of a new car.
It was a very expensive bottle of Johnny Walker.
Okay. So that's what us mere mortals have to deal with if we were to get a DUI. If you are an elected official in the state of California in a one-party state, meaning you are the team that controls the budgets for all of the police departments, all of the courts, all of the DA's offices, all of the city attorney's offices, because they bounce from one level of government to the next. Sometimes they're in the state legislature. Sometimes they're on the city council. Sometimes they're on the board of supervisors. There's another set of rules for them. You see, you have to be really, really, really drunk to get a DUI if you're an elected official in California, as opposed to, say, one of us. And, Randy, we now have that on the record.
That's right, because as we reported to you Friday, California assemblywoman and current candidate to replace Kevin De Leon on the LA City Council,
Quite frankly,
Wendy Carrillo, was busted for a DUI. Now, when most people get pulled over for a DUI, or in her case, when you ping pong off a bunch of cars and the airbags go off, you have to do the field sobriety test right there on the scene. But as you're going to hear from this report from Fox 11's Phil Schuman, who's a legend, by the way, Wendy Carrillo got special treatment from the LAPD, and apparently it's policy. Although, even with the special treatment, she still got popped for a DUI because she was that drunk.
Well, how much do you think she drank if they gave her every possible break to give her time to get that BAC down, doing all kinds of things to kill time, and she still tested way over the limit?
Well, according to the guy that filmed this entire thing, because he heard a loud noise outside of his house in the middle of the night and started filming the stumbling, reeking of booze Wendy Carrillo, he says she stunk to high heaven, which tells me she likes gin.
Gin makes you smell.
Gin makes you do a lot of things.
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen
for sure.
people's personalities completely change only with gin.
That juniper berry man.
Let's listen to what's going on here with Fox 11's Phil Schuman.
Well, Carrillo's been booked on suspicion of driving under the influence and being involved in a traffic collision while having what police call a high blood alcohol count, which could mean twice the legal limit.
Yikes.
That's what? Close to a 0.2. It's 0.08, right?
0.08 is the legal limit. So you're looking at, it could be a 0.2, which means for someone of Wendy Carrillo's size, we're looking at multiple bottles of booze.
Okay, let's go through this for a second. How much does a drink cost you in terms of BAC? When you get your driver's license renewed, they send you that chart, and I don't recall what it is. Can we look this up?
From what I remember, as a waiter at TGI Fridays many, many, many years ago in 2005, what you were legally allowed to serve somebody because it would put them over the limit was no more than 2 5-ounce glasses of wine an hour, 2 16-ounce pints of beer an hour, or 2 ounces of hard liquor an hour.
Okay, so if you're talking about 2 drinks being worth 0.04, well, that's probably playing it conservative.
Oh, of course.
How much do you think she weighs?
That's a good question. She's short, but she's also, what's the nice way to say it?
Husky. Rotund. Thick.
All right, I'm looking up the blood alcohol chart, and we're looking for...
But you have to plug in the weight, too.
Yeah, so what do you guess? You've seen her.
Yeah. How tall is she?
She looks short.
I don't know. Give me a number to start out with.
All right, maybe we'll be nice and say 160?
Are you kidding me?
170?
160? Have her put her other foot on the scale.
Okay, how about 180?
$1.90, $1.95 at least.
Okay. Well, you can only go 180 or 200. So we're going to be nice, and we're going to go 180. After 3 drinks, you're at 0.08. And after 4 drinks, 0.10. 5 drinks, 0.13. 6 drinks, 0.15. 7 drinks puts you double the legal limit at 0.18. 8 drinks is 0.20. And this is all within the span of just a couple hours.
Okay.
And you're not even doing water breaks.
But this is at 2 o'clock in the morning, presumably with dinner.
Yes.
And when you eat food, that bleeds out the alcohol. And over time, let's say you eat dinner at 7 o'clock, that's many hours. So she had to have more than that.
She may have had 9 or 10.
What, was she at a frat party?
Well, and then at some point, she decided to get behind the wheel, and she tried to find the red train, not the white train, and she didn't find the red train. Instead, she found a parked car that she slammed into, and the airbags went off.
And she claims that she slammed into those cars not because she was drunk, but because she sneezed.
Oh, yes. Let's continue.
Need an ambulance? No, I'm okay.
The cell phone video shows Carrillo's Audi in the background in the street about 1:30 a.m. northeast L.A. She'd apparently smashed into the rear end of this gray Toyota, pushing it into the small black VW.
Here's another question. How does she afford an Audi? What do they pay those people? A little over $100,000 a year?
Yes, but then you get all the under-the-table money from the lobbyists.
Right, but that's what I'm getting at here. Because let's say you make, I don't know, $120,000 a year. You have to maintain a residence in L.A. You have to maintain a residence in Sacramento. Every time you go to the grocery store, you have to buy the box of Girl Scout cookies. Otherwise, you're a jerk. There is no money left over. There's certainly no money left over for an Audi.
Well, let's all give a little history lesson. Before she was in the assembly, Wendy Carrillo worked for Jose Huizar, the indicted, convicted felon, briber extraordinaire of the LA City Council. And Jose Huizar's chief of staff at the time, Esperanza, went to go work for her in the assembly's office until he got indicted. So she is very close with a lot of very corrupt officials here in Los Angeles.
No kidding.
Owned by this man.
Heard what was ultimately a car crash, really loud bang.
He's a neighbor, said he was awakened by the noise, went outside, cell phone camera rolling.
Your government at work. You get woken up because the assemblywoman of your district slams into a car that slams into your car. And thank goodness this guy started filming.
Though he didn't want to be on camera himself.
She was okay. She was obviously disoriented. She gave us like a hand signal that she was okay. She got out of the car right away.
Was that a hand signal, or was she swatting away the gin flies?
Or maybe one finger was up.
She was okay. She was obviously disoriented. She gave us like a hand signal that she was okay. She got out of the car right away when she came up to us. It was very clear that she was intoxicated, slurring her speech. The alcohol smell was very present.
Gin.
Wait, you're trying to tell me that wasn't allergies?
I'm so sorry.
You can hear Carrillo as officers approach her with this brief explanation.
I'm sorry. I sneezed and I lost track of the vehicle.
I sneezed? That was one hell of an achoo.
No kidding. You know what, though? One time I was leaving a grocery store and I sneezed and I pulled a muscle in my rib cage and I went down like it was a Zapruder film.
I'm sorry. I sneezed and I lost track of the vehicle.
I just had a sneeze. That's all. It changed the season.
Otis the town drunk.
Yes, she says she sneezed and lost control.
I'm really upset. Phil Schumann announced that he's semi-retiring from Fox 11. He's the best.
Oh, yeah.
But in the background, you can see her on the sidewalk, 2 officers administering a field sobriety test. She appears to briefly lose her balance. Before it's all completed, listen to the LAPD officer explain to bystanders what happened next.
LAPD has a policy of being fully transparent with the public. It was brought to my attention that this person is an elected official in the state senate.
Assembly, but same thing.
Okay. So sometimes for people that are considered to be, for lack of better terms, a dignitary, we allow them to do the investigation in a private area away from the public, right?
Why is that policy?
And how is that transparency? You have someone out there who was videotaping it because they were woken up in the middle of the night because she hit 2 parked cars. And in the name of transparency, they're taking away the ability for the public to know exactly what went on in that investigation, and they're going to do it in a private place, so we all have to take their word for it.
Well, and it makes me remember her old boss, again, convicted felon Jose Huizar. In between the FBI scandal and the weird massage scandal was the he ran somebody over scandal. And when the LAPD wanted to check him out for DUI, they waited a few hours until he was down at the station to have him blow into the gun. And they waited until he was below the legal limit.
And if I'm not mistaken, and anyone who works in the state legislature, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But if I'm not mistaken, your cars have some kind of identifying marker in Sacramento. So the CHP, who you negotiate their contract with, and other law enforcement agencies up there know that you're a member of the legislature.
Oh, there's probably like a special little sticker with a code. You also get it for being a very nice donor.
So that means they don't even pull you over if you're doing something suspicious. You have to do something like hit 2 parked cars to even get their attention.
It does not change. It does not change the fact that she has been drinking. She has been involved in a crash.
But we didn't want it to be on video because the constituent was filming of her stumbling and falling over, because that will be used in Kevin De Leon's campaign commercial.
That's right. And she's the one, the Speaker of the Assembly, wants to be the next city councilman for Los Angeles.
Carrillo was arrested, booked, and released, issuing a statement of apology, saying she's cooperating with police while not specifically admitting she was drinking.
Yeah, but she was.
Oh, come on. You're going to deny it at this point?
As a public servant, she said, I am aware that I must adhere to a higher standard that demands
Well, you had a very high standard of blood alcohol.
That demands personal accountability for my conduct, and I accept responsibility for my actions. I sincerely apologize to my family, constituents, colleagues, and staff.
Yeah, but how about the guy whose car you hit that hit the other car? Did you apologize to them?
I wonder if she left a note.
No one injured in the incident involving Carrillo, who's been representing the Northeast L.A. area since 2017 in the Assembly. Now we wait to see if the city attorney or the district attorney goes ahead and files criminal charges.
Oh, good luck with that.
Remember, Carrillo is currently running for Kevin De Leon's L.A. City Council seat.
Yeah, so we know there's another member of the Assembly early this year was busted for DUI, Dave Min. He continues to run for Congress. Carrillo still going forward with her race?
Oh, there's no question. It's obviously this just happened. We have to wait to see whether charges are filed. But the Republicans are already, trying to take advantage of that, offering Uber gift cards to California Democrats.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then there's another one. Yes, those two, that's accurate. But there was a third one out in Riverside County by the name of Cervantes, and I think that was her second DUI.
Yes. And the first one, they gave her a pass on. The second one, she's got to go.
And it was on the 10 freeway.
Yes, that was this July. That's 3 prominent electeds in Southern California that have been busted for DUI. And this is not 1990. This is not 1980. This is 2023. Uber is ready and available in everybody's phone.
And I think there's some kind of service up there for them. Now, granted, the Cervantes DUI was here in Riverside County. And the Carrillo situation, I guess that hasn't been adjudicated yet, but that was in Los Angeles. But the Dave Min situation, I think he was coming from some official function. Did he bring a flask in there with him?
I would imagine a good 1/3 of the California legislature has the little flask that you put on your anklet.
Well, I'll tell you, the government that we get makes a lot more sense if you know that they're all legally drunk while they're writing the laws.
There you have it. Wendy Carrillo got to go to a private place to take her field sobriety test because it is LAPD policy to treat the electeds a little differently.
When we return, I'm going to read you a couple of posts from individuals claiming to be former staffers for Wendy Carrillo. They reacted to the news of her suspected DUI, and we'll tell you what they had to say coming up in moments. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Will starts us off at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And remember, this is Will, not me saying this. This is listener Will. In the case of Wendy Carrillo, her DMV weight-to-drink ratio is listed as Earth and the Pacific Ocean.
This audience can be brutal.
How about Sean? Dear gentlemen, I have been escorted out of Pat O'Brien's because of my mouth on gin.
Well, he's not the only one that has that story. And Randy, if you missed one of the shows last week and you want to go back and listen to it because it's fresh to you, that is easy to do.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to do. Just go to KABC.com, click on podcast, go to the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes, or you can go to the KABC app, search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It is the easiest way to listen live to the station whenever or wherever you are. And you can also download all the podcasts of this show. It works on your phone. It works on CarPlay. Just make sure that if you're listening during CarPlay, that you're not drinking or on drugs.
Oakland, on the other hand, Mike.
Nope, this one.
The drugs can make them zombie.
And Randy, coming up later on in the month, we're going on the road.
That's right. Make sure you come see us broadcast live Friday, November 17th. That's a week from Friday at the brand new Gelson's West LA at West Edge on the corner of Olympic and Bundy. The Gelson's West LA at West Edge is open now. It's absolutely gorgeous in there. We're going to be broadcasting live for the wine, craft beer, and sushi bar. It's going to be a great time. We hope to see all of you down there Friday, November 17th from noon to 3.
And what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Creed to the Glen Helen Amphitheater on August 31st. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
We just told you what Fox 11's Phil Schumann found out during his report on the suspected DUI of assemblywoman Wendy Carrillo, who, of course, is a member of the Democratic majority, the party that controls government. We learned that there is one type of DUI test that all of us have to take, and then there's a separate one for dignitaries that only happens in private where no one can videotape it, so there's no actual evidence in terms of what happens, when it happens, and what the results are. You just have to take their word for it.
And in fact, if that constituent didn't have his camera out at all, not only would we not know about this, but you might look to what happened with Jose Huizar. The LAPD might have helped try to make this thing go away like they did for him 10 years ago.
That's right. Because you just say, oh, there was a specimen that was contaminated and it's inconclusive, and we're just going to let this one go.
Hey, assemblywoman, just suck on this penny for the next hour.
So after this news broke, some of the assemblywoman's former staffers responded and reacted to the news. And Randy, you have copies of what they had to say.
That's right. This was all submitted to a Twitter account. Are we still calling it Twitter? Called Dear CA Staffers. And let's read the first one. I would like to remain anonymous. My first job out of college was to work with Wendy. I thought she'd be a great model for me, but as she had a similar background to me. However, she is nothing but abusive to her staff members. She loves to berate you over little things. She is a bully. George Esperanza was the chief of staff at the time, and he would force young female colleagues to drink with him during work hours and would sexually harass him. And yes, that's the same George Esperanza that was involved in the Jose Huizar FBI Vegas corruption case.
That sounds so Mad Men to me.
At certain points, he would throw things or punch tables just because he felt that he could. By the way, Esperanza and Wendy Carrillo were hooking up when they both worked for Jose Huizar, and then she pulled him off of Huizar's office and put him in her office till he got indicted.
So incestuous.
He never did any work and would pop in once in a while, would run personal errands during work hours, and would say he and Wendy could only hire attractive people at a job, and explaining why he wouldn't hire a qualified candidate because they were fat and ugly.
Keep in mind, these are the people that make you take all the DEI training.
Sounds like Garcetti's office. Myra was the district director at the time, and she was extremely unqualified, never worked, and would do Disney or pamper herself during work hours. Wendy and George would have violent yelling matches. Here's another one. This is sent to Dear CA staffers in response to Wendy Carrillo getting busted for DUI after going over the legal limit by a factor of 2, slamming into a car and slamming into another car. Former staffer for Wendy Carrillo, too. We had to take money from our own funds, even though we were earning next to nothing without reimbursement. Had to pick up her lunch, breakfast, and coffee. There was also a culture of forced drinking at the office. You were pressured into drinking with the boss, and if you didn't show up, you were berated. Not to mention, she was also psychologically abusive.
Now, let me get this straight. She's forcing everyone to get drunk in the office, and then she's sending them in their cars to go out and pick up her Starbucks to pay for it with their own money.
How long has she been in local or state government? Like 14 years?
Again, she writes the laws that the rest of you have to live by.
Here's yet another one sent to Dear CA staffers in response to Wendy Carrillo getting popped for a DUI. I would like to share that Wendy Carrillo dated George Esperanza, her former district director and eventual chief of staff. He's the guy who's all over news in a federal bribery scheme involving LA City Councilman Jose Huizar. She had such a huge crush on him. She hired him and promoted him to a 6-figure salary, while the staff that worked for her at the time said he was woefully unqualified. Turns out Wendy liked him, and when the news broke about the federal probe, she had him living at her house for several months to protect him. True story.
You see, this is what happens. In Sacramento or Washington, D.C., they're always fighting over something. The definition of politics is who gets what, when, where, why, and how. And typically what happens in a two-party state is that they fight over ideology. Conservatives believe the government should be run one way. Liberals believe the government should be run another way. And they fight over which vision will be the vision that the state takes. You win some, you lose some, you're forced to compromise. When there's only one vision that's represented in the state legislature or in Washington, D.C., if that were a one-party state or one-party city, is that they fight over spoils. They fight over who gets what. They fight over who gets the money. They fight over who gets the contracts. They fight over whose people get the jobs. That's what they fight over. It's a den of thieves. This is what we have in Sacramento, and this woman was going to try to sell herself as the clean version of Kevin De Leon, and she was going to go on the LA City Council.
It is hot as hell.
That has how many people either in prison or headed to prison?
Again, she started off as a staffer for corrupt, harassy, drunk driver Jose Huizar.
The thing to do, if you want to clean up government in California, it's not campaign finance reform. It's not ethics commissions. It's not DEI classes. It's not sexual harassment training. It's none of that. What you need is you need to go back to a two-party system. You need predators in the water who are watching for this kind of behavior, because if she was actually in danger of losing that seat to a Republican, you better bet your bottom dollar all of this sort of abusive behavior would have come up in one of her campaigns. But if it's a lopsided district and she's in no danger of losing, then no one's going to bring it up because it's not relevant. You see how that works? This is part of the reason. If you're a Democrat, by the way, you would benefit from having a two-party system. Because look at the complete pieces of trash that work their way up the food chain. And then look what happens when they get some kind of big job that no one knows they're unqualified for. Eric Garcetti, Javier Becerra, Kamala Harris.
I received things on both ends.
Joe Biden had absolutely no clue that any of these people were complete buffoons. Because the LA Times writes glowing profiles about them, like they just did this weekend about Eric Garcetti. Did you see that one, Randy?
I did, but I'm not going through the paywall, so I saw the headline and said, I'm moving on.
Oh, he's so qualified.
I mean, hell, with Becerra, Biden didn't even know his name.
For Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Becerra.
I'm telling you, it makes a lot more sense now. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Linda writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Thank you for exposing all these crooked and disgusting public officials. I never see any of this covered in the LA Times. Although she didn't say LA Times. She said the Los Angeles Slimes.
Well, I like the Hamas Times. Personally.
That is pretty great, considering how the editorial version of that paper has gone in the last month or so.
Did you see they had one out recently defending Rashida Tlaib?
What, when she posted misinformation that the hospital attack was Israel when it wasn't?
Well, and then she had a new one this weekend where she essentially repeated the Hamas battle cry.
Oh, from the river to the sea, because we don't want Israel to exist?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Alexis de Tocqueville would be proud. We've got 2 more hours coming up on the John Phillips Show. The Fix California Hour is next. Professor Barbara Stone joins us. Don't you go anywhere. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Well.